What's up?
Going on?
You got to finish the other half of it.
Other half of what?
What's up?
Max Ordinate Nation.
There you go, dude. So just real quick, man, we're sitting here bullshitting about YouTube and like getting more videos up there. So I have our law enforcement sniper wall target up on YouTube, right? The full edit.
Mhm.
And like there's a lot of moments in there where when we're shooting, there's no talking, right? There's nothing, you're just watching a person shoot, me or you.
Yeah, for
So
sure.
in those white spaces, I decided to find some copyright-free music and kind of like set the mood.
Yeah, no, you did.
And somebody was like, hold on, let me find this comment, dude. He was being snarky as fuck. I'm like, Jesus, what the fuck?
It's a pretty funny comment.
What's that?
It's a pretty funny comment.
He's like, do you subject persons taking the test to this music?
Well, it is some pretty some very techno deep house kind of mid
Hey,
90s cut music.
when you are searching for music that is free, you're
Uh-huh.
limited on what they give you.
Yeah, fair enough.
I mean, so anyways, just looking at the analytics of this post, right? It's been up for a couple days and total watch time 49 and a half hours. But here's the crazy part, right? Let's see, is it under engagements? Average view duration is only 4 minutes and 46 seconds.
Interesting.
So, I mean, you can let's see here. I'm pretty sure you can look at, is it this one? I don't know if it's this one. Man, I don't know where it's at. I thought there was a place where you could look and see like what are the main areas people are watching. Like, are they
I have
watching
no
the first?
idea.
They
I have no
watching the
idea how
first
any of
four
these
and a half
analytics work.
minutes, and they're like, "No,
Yeah.
I'm not finishing this video." Um, or they, like I watch YouTube videos to help me do shit all the time. Like, oh, I need to fix this. It's YouTube it, right? But I'm scrolling through that video to find the part that I want because I really don't care about the rest of what they're saying. You think that's what's happening here?
Trying to look to see, but I can't see that on me either. So yeah, I have no idea. I don't know how those analytics work.
I have no idea either, but I do think it's insane that we have, 50 hours of view time, but the average view time is only 4 minutes and 46 seconds. I don't know what any of this means though. Like, I have no idea outside of where your viewers came from. Hey, 100% of the viewers are male. I do know that
All right.
between the ages of 25 and 54.
What country?
America.
I've got a lot in the Philippines and South Africa.
That's because you're part Asian.
Really weird. Just an odd demographic to just pop up.
We got 2% from Canada.
Nice.
Yeah. But can they have guns up there? I thought they got all their guns
Yeah,
taken.
they do. No, they do. It's been years, but I've hunted Canada before. It was just birds, but I know there's a lot of big deer taken in Alberta.
Yeah. I mean, so the video's got uh 21 likes, but it's actually, if I scroll through here, right, just looking, um, hmm, yeah, I can keep going. This is the only video that has down likes on it. So I was reading the email. It says, Tyler, your recent YouTube video or YouTube analytics, you have 98.2% upvote. It's those two votes, dude. Those two votes just dragging our percentage down.
Two people don't like it.
It's horrible.
They probably just didn't like the music. Content's fire.
That's probably what it is. It was that one guy, and he's
They
like
don't like the
calling
music.
his friends and telling his friends to give us a downvote. So, anyways, you want to talk about the target and the drill that we ran together.
Mhm.
I don't have any excuses. I mean, I haven't run that drill in 2 years, but doesn't give me an excuse because I shoot way more than you do, whether it's here with the military or, I just came back from a team competition. I don't have any excuses. I dropped 3 shots and I just fucking sucked.
I did the same exact thing. I dropped 3 shots, but I haven't, I'm not exactly known for how often I get out and train, which was glaringly obvious during that. Now, that's a whole nother thing I want to discuss, which is, I mean, I only dropped 3 shots, or wow, I dropped a whole 3 shots. Where do I lie with that? And I'm kind of going both ways as far as my critique of my own shooting for that day. So I did kind of walk away, not really walking away after watching the video and seeing my shooting, or I would say not after shooting the qual. And for all intents and purposes, like for average Joe, like we both shot it well. We dropped 3 shots. Okay, it is what it is. But after watching the footage, I realized I'm in a place where I've been training for so long. I picked up a lot of bad habits that I harp on other people, that I'm like, ooh, I need to go out and go train more. So
You say we shot it well, but everybody I tell that I shot this and I dropped 3 says what happened.
yeah. And I'm in the same boat, right? Like all 3 shots that I dropped, there was no excuse for them. Plenty of time, no issues, even with the malfunctions I was having. That's not why I dropped the shots. They were just poorly executed.
Yeah.
But that gets me to where I look at my performance and I'm like, wow, I'm not training enough. I'm not going out and shooting enough. I'm in a spot where it's like, it's not good. So it sort of lit a fire under me to change my schedule for the year to go train.
I'd say between me, you, and the Max Ordinate Instagram, everybody's seen the shot that you missed.
Yeah, no, everybody has. And which is it, and it's funny because that is my most like, if you could give me a position to shoot from, that's what I would choose. Hands down. That's one of my favorite supported positions to shoot from. And it was just me. There's plenty of time. There was all the time in the world, and that was just me being an idiot.
So with that particular shot, right, the tripod deployment, I was watching the video and you've got less legs to open than I do, right?
Mm-hmm.
Because you have that long, tall tripod. So you just come out, right? Meanwhile, I'm over there and I'm like 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2, right? And you can watch and see that I get my rifle up there and I had to make some adjustments. One, I didn't have the leg clicked into its angle correctly. So I had to fix that. And then I had to rotate the whole tripod. And then you shot right before I did.
I mean, almost at the same time,
Do
just
you
right before
feel
me.
like we were in a race?
Oh, totally did. And there was no reason for it. We weren't racing each other, but for whatever reason, it's like I had to break that shot first.
Yeah. And then do you think your unfamiliarity with the target, right? You could see what you're supposed to shoot at,
Mm-hmm.
but it wasn't until you looked hard that you saw a circle that you are meant to shoot inside of.
Yeah, so I wanted to give myself that, like, yeah, if had I known the circle was there, there's a million things I could have done, right? Um, but it's no excuse. There's no measure in which I like, oh, just aim smaller. Like I just didn't. That just wasn't a good pull,
Yeah.
because by any metric, I'm aiming for the center of that target.
Let me see here. I had one shot that fell low on the barricade shoot. And it was the very first barricade we're at. It was like that ladder looking setup. We were on a medium rung, took the shot, I saw it hit low. I'm like, motherfuck. Like the shot felt clean when I took it. And then get up on the rooftop, take the shot. It's in, but it's also low. And I'm just like, Jesus, what the fuck is happening here, right? But aside from the barricade shooting, the two shots that got me, and I don't know what the fuck was going on. Bad position, just bad recoil management, but shooting weak side off the tripod for the gas mask shoot because we didn't have gas mask. That's where all my points went right there. That was
Yeah,
it.
and surprisingly, I was fine there. What got me was shooting your target once, just completely, just whatever. It's not
Yeah.
the first time I've done that. Yeah, and I think, yeah, that it was that one, and then I think the standing tripod. So we dropped three. I don't remember what my third was, but
You
whatever.
shot the wrong target, and then you
Standing tripod.
missed the tripod deployment, and then you had one fall out on, man, I'll have to go back and look, but I thought you missed one on the standing or kneeling tripod. No, you missed one on the barricade. That bitch went way right. You almost shot the tripod deployment.
Yes, because I tried to force it because I was holding it. It was a bad hold, and I was forcing it the whole time. We talked about it.
Yeah.
Instead of just resetting my position, I just forced it more, and I slung it.
That
Yeah,
was a good time, man. That was a good get out
it's
there,
for
shoot.
me. It was great to go out and actually push myself a little bit. I don't get the luxury of going out and when you are here competing and actually doing that as often as I'd like to. So for me, it was a good time. And it was good to see myself compared to you and not just compared to an average shooter to see where I was at. So there was a lot of good came out of that for me, both mentally and from a training standpoint.
No, it was good. What you just said there is why everybody's making fun of me. Mainly our small, tight group of friends.
Yeah, they should.
You shot the same as Jeph.
Yeah.
Can you not shoot anymore? What the fuck? So I think this will lead us into the conversation that we're about to talk about, which is training rifles, right? And so you were shooting a 6mm, 6 Creedmoor,
Yeah.
right? I was shooting a 16-inch 308, which is essentially a training gun. I call it our law enforcement build. It's built and set up for a law enforcement application. But it originally built it just to be a trainer, right? So I have two training guns. I have a 223 and then I have a 308, but those are not the guns that I compete with. And but they're built pretty identical to everything that I would compete with. And so running that 308, it brings you like essentially what would you say the biggest benefit of a 308 trainer would be?
So it depends on how you build it, right? It's got two. So I would say there's two big benefits. The first one is this 308 ammo historically is going to be cheaper. So it's going to let you get out and actually shoot a little bit more, not by much, but nominally. And the second is purely increased recoil.
Yeah.
So if you're building, like for you, your trainer is pretty much exactly like your competition rifle, except it's a 308.
Yeah.
That is the ideal, as far as I'm concerned, like the ideal situation, because you're running the same gun. It's just beating you up a little bit more. So when you go to a match and you're actually competing, it's going to be like shooting a BB gun
Yeah.
because there's almost no felt recoil in comparison. For me, that would be ideal. Um, it, you know, there's a lot of, again, you have a 223 and a 308 trainer. There's benefits, I think, to the 223 also, but I think for strictly training, you can't beat the 308. I'd say find something even harder to hit if you could for as cheap.
So I like the 308 trainer because of that enhanced recoil over the 6mm stuff.
Mm-hmm.
And it doesn't, like, you can't lie about it. You sit there and, like, you get into the prone position, you shoot the cold bore shot, and the reticle goes right back where it's supposed to, and you're like, fuck yeah.
Yeah.
Then you take that first shot off the tripod and your recoil drives you to the right edge of the paper. You're like, fuck. Like, you instantly, if you're paying attention, you instantly get told you're fucking up.
Yeah, for sure.
And you need to change something, right? You need better buttstock placement. What are you doing with that non-firing hand? Like, something's got to change, right? Which, again, depending on your position, now you weren't shooting a 308, but still being out of practice, I believe that's what led you. And I forget what position it was in. Was it kneeling or seated that you shot my target?
I think it was seated.
So if it was seated, right? No, it was kneeling. It was definitely kneeling. It was the very first shot that you took because you were shooting everything right to left.
Yeah.
And I was shooting everything left to right.
Yeah.
And I looked at my target and
You
I'm
didn't
like,
notice till you got there.
there's a fucking hole in my shit. What's going on here? So your very first shot, right, wasn't due to recoil. It was,
No,
you
not at
just
all.
looked at the wrong target. You said, I'm shooting that bitch, right? That tunnel vision.
Yeah, and
So
it's funny because my point of reference, because I had everything powered kind of in. My point of reference was a couple hits on target, and there's a couple hits on target of both of our targets that look the same. So I
yeah.
kept referencing that when I would just zoom in, see that, and I went straight to the target. And I
Yeah.
just bonehead move.
So the 308 definitely got the recoil side of it. I'd say a big benefit to both 308 and 223 is the wind aspect. When you get away from that 100 yards and you start to shoot distance. Now, it's not going to make you better at calling wind for a specific caliber, right? It's going to make you better at just judging the wind in general and
Yes.
maybe processing the wind formula, right? Not using a Kestrel or some type of weather meter or ballistic app, but just in your mind, okay, I'm shooting 500. And we went through this in a different
We did.
video. We went head to head with a 308 and a 223. And it's just that mental process of like, okay, we're shooting 500. So, for me, what makes sense is as soon as I know the distance, I know what my starting wind call is going to be. And then I just start multiplying by the wind that we see out there. So it's like, okay, we got a 12-mile-an-hour wind. It's a 4-mile-an-hour gun, 0.5 times 3, 1.5. And I send it, right? And there's a confidence there because I've done it so many times. Whereas if you haven't made these wind calls that drastic before, holding that far off the target can be, what's the right word for it? Not challenging,
Intimidating. Yeah.
intimidating. Yeah, right. And then you shooting a 223, it's like, okay, well, you've got a 3-mile-an-hour gun and there's a 12-mile-an-hour wind out there. So now you're at a 4 multiplier. You need to be holding 2 mils, and you're like, 2
No.
mils sounds like a lot.
Yeah, I was like, I'm gonna hold 1.5.
So I think there's huge benefits to not just the recoil on 308, but the wind side of it, right? Same thing with the 223. Like, just the wind aspect is going to push you to make those wind calls, right? But how
Yeah,
long, like, if we're at our facility and we go out, right? How many wind calls can you make before you've tapped out the benefits of reading the range. Like, do you get 3 or 4 wind calls before it's just you're making the same wind call? Like, nothing changes. Our range is pretty consistent. Once the wind gets going, hey, it's 25 mile an hour, and you just start to get into a groove of what you should hold, and then it's not a benefit anymore, right?
Yeah, and I think that's kind of what has gotten me over the last, I'd say, probably 2 years, is I've gotten away from shooting 308 and 223 for a quote unquote trainer. I just been shooting 6 mil, and every time I go out, that's all I've been shooting. And I haven't really been training with a training rifle. I've just been shooting my rifle. My wind calls, my ability to call wind has been poor the last year. So I'm going to go out and this year probably start spending some more time just doing that, right? Like, everybody needs to work on some very specific things. The video that will come out, which is us shooting, that I think it was we shot like 2, 5, and 7 or something like that, or 3, 5, and 7.
3, 5, 7. Yeah.
Me just absolutely just stinking the place up. It's glaringly obvious that my wind calls need some help. Now, to be fair, what I was shooting didn't really want to get out to 7, because at one point I was like, that bullet just exploded and went left. But yeah, my wind calls are pretty poor, so that's okay. That's why we train, so we know what we need to work on.
Well, that's the challenging side of it, right? Is like, when you first get there, right? And I don't mean to the 100-yard range. Fuck the 100-yard range. I'm talking about when you first get to wherever long range area that you're going to shoot at. You should be almost challenging yourself for that first shot, right? Don't walk the distance out. Don't shoot 200, 300, 400, 500, because you essentially are gaining information. Every shot you take, you're gaining information, right? So by the time you get to 800, you're taking a shot, but you already have an idea what the wind's been doing for every 100 yards before that, right? So you got to.
But this is what I mean by like me needing to train specific calibers, because what you said is key, is that walking up with the confidence in your call matters, right?
Yeah.
I've gone out 3 times now with a rifle that I'm comfortable with and a caliber that I'm comfortable with and confident in, and I've made first round hits at 900 and 1,000 every time. All 3 times I've gone out and haven't missed. The second I pick up a caliber I'm not confident with, I'm like, oh, I don't know about my wind call. I'm just not quite sure. And I just kind of hem-hot. Yeah. So I need to step out of my comfort zone and start working on some calibers that are going to be a little bit harder to call, so I can gain some confidence in those.
Yeah. But that's where like you said it right there, like first round impacts at 900 or 1,000, right? But if you truly want to practice the wind, I think 6, 7, 8, those distances should be your first shot.
Yeah.
You got a 0, you know what your muzzle velocity is, like you got your good dope, everything's solid, then challenge yourself to take that first round shot, right?
Yeah.
Even if you miss, you can still learn from it and say, okay, I missed by this many mils. Like, let's say at 800, you missed by 0.8. So depending on what gun you're using a 6 mil, you were off by 6 miles an hour for wind. You're using a 308, you're off by 4 miles an hour, right? And you start to look and say, okay, like, how did I judge the wind that wrong, right? And something we deal with the cops, I push these cops to shoot distance, right? Now, are they ever going to take a 700-yard shot in their life? If they are, it's a big problem, right? There's something bigger going on, right? But their confidence that these guys get from shooting small targets, having to read the atmosphere, build good positions, get stable, right? There's no replacement for it. So I'm telling them, I'm like, hey, we're going to shoot 700. Check this out. How wide's the target? And so everybody will measure it and they'll be like, oh, the target is 0.5 wide. I'm like, all right, so check this out. You have a 4 mile an hour gun. At 700, a 4-mile-an-hour wind is going to move the projectile 0.7 mils. If you take a shot and then it takes you 10 fucking seconds to send a second round, could that wind have changed by 4 miles an hour? And they're like, yes. I'm like, okay, so you just made a correction because you missed off the left, and now the wind is picked up and you're going to miss off the right. And it's like those shittier calibers, right? The more wind, what's the right word here, Jeph? The more wind openness.
Resistant, the higher the
No.
ballistic coefficient.
No. Like the shittier bullets, right? Like your 308, your 223s, the bullets that will just like there's a fucking breeze and it's off the fucking, it's off the range. So those calibers force you to make faster follow-up shots. Read what happened, make a correction, send your next shot, right? And so there's benefits all around to having these training rifles, these 308s, these 223s. Is there any other caliber that you could think of that could be a training caliber?
I mean, so a lot of people will say build like a little rimfire setup just to pull a trigger.
Okay.
I don't. People can argue, but I don't see a ton of benefit in it. If you're going to do that, just build a 223 trainer. And
Yeah.
even for me, I will still argue with the 223 being a good trainer other than just being able to make wind calls. I think it's what we go back to before, which is you're actually setting yourself up for failure when you're shooting these really low recoil rifles as trainers, because your actual rifle is going to recoil even more, right? So I don't, maybe, I don't know. I mean, I'm getting a ton of trigger time just shooting rats in my backyard with my air rifle, right? Like, it's just pulling a trigger and getting set up. Good training, yeah, probably. So you build what you can, and if your ability to shoot more means you build a little 22 rimfire or something, then cool.
Yeah.
But other than just because it makes it more available, I would say 223 or 308 is probably what you want to go with.
So I like the 223 simply because one, it's just fun, right? It's just
Yeah, oh, for sure.
shoot a 223 bolt gun. But I mean, when we talk about budget, the 223, I mean, you can find some pretty decent budget ammo that shoots pretty well.
Yeah,
What's that shit that Nick was shooting at the team safari?
I think it's the same stuff I was shooting.
It's like 50 cents a round.
It's not like AA, it's like
AAC.
AAC.
Yeah, AAC.
Yeah,
But it's
yeah, it's cheap.
shooting, it's punching 77 grain Sierra Match Kings downrange. It's a good
Mhm.
little bullet. I mean, that's a 1,000 round bullet all day. So now, is it ideal for 1,000? No, right? But I mean, it'll make it there. It's cheap. I mean, you're being
Will it make it there? Will it make it there on the day that we were shooting the 7 PRC?
ooh, I don't know. We didn't try it, right? I mean, weird things could happen.
That was a tough day.
Even if it did make it there, do you think you'd be able to see the impact anyway?
No, and I will say it probably wouldn't make it there, not because the distance was too far, but if you add the total distance traveled, it may be 1,000 yards in a straight line, but it's having to go 2,000 yards by the time it does this, it comes back. I don't think it makes.
That's true, man. That was a crazy ass windy day. We haven't even talked about the 7 PRC, but I was going to bring up not the 7 PRC because, dude, that ammo is not fucking cheap, right? It's
No,
not
it's
cheap
not.
at all. But could you use, if you really wanted to practice um, recoil management, could you use a 300 Win Mag?
Yeah, you could. And actually, that's what I used to use. So I would shoot it was a SIG SHR 970. It was my old 300 Win hunting rifle, weighed like 7 pounds or something, 6 pounds. Black in my eyes more of the times than I can count when I was younger. That's what I would train with. And then I would shoot my little 16-inch 308 for the department, and it was like nothing. It was just expensive and it sucked.
Yeah. I mean, but I don't know if I'd use it. I think it's just as a training gun, the recoil's there, but the cost of the training ammo is just too great. Even for 300 Win Mag, you're probably looking at what, $50 to $55 a box.
Oh, at least.
Yeah, I mean, the cheapest 7 PRC ammo I could find, well, actually, the only ammo I could find for 7 PRC at Bass Pro Shop was $62 a box.
Yeah, not even, I mean, like match hunter, but not even match ammo.
So, the other thing about these training rifles, and you brought it up, is that my 308, my 223 are set up just like my competition gun, right? And the amount of complaining that I've heard in the past when somebody would want to use my 223 or use my 308, they'd pick it up, like, oh my God, it's so fucking heavy. Like, it's identical to my competition gun. And my
Yeah,
competition gun for PRS shooting, for these field matches that are, you can use anything you want essentially. Like, that gun weighs 25 pounds. There's zero recoil that you feel. You just, like, you don't feel anything. Now the downside is you have to be able to carry it, move with it, and like do things. So if you're going to have a training gun, right, you should know what benefits you want to get out of that thing, right? If I'm going to shoot the 308, I know that I'm going to be forced to manage recoil and build better positions. But at the same time, I don't want to be holding an 8-pound 308 because, yeah, the recoil is going to be that much greater. But at the same time, I'm not learning how to move with a 25-pound gun. I'm not having to
yeah,
go from
that's
this position to this position to that position with a 25-pound rifle, right? So I'm losing an aspect of my training. Same thing with that 223. I mean, that thing is a beast. The barrel is identical to my 6XC barrel, which is, there's no taper. It's just a straight truck axle. I think it's a inch and a quarter all the way. I mean, the thing is a hoss. And you pick it up, you're like, holy fuck, right? But aside from the wind calls, you're getting the exact same feel as what you're training for. Does that make sense?
yeah, and that maybe something I hadn't thought about, which is I've always kind of shit on the 223 as a training rifle simply because of the lack of felt recoil. But something I hadn't thought about is having the additional weight and everything else set up like your comp gun, learning how to move and hold positions with that rifle, not just manage recoil. And that's something I really hadn't thought about, right? Learning how to move from position to position because you're training for something pretty specific. And that's kind of a good point to bring up. I'm always in a weird spot where, what am I training for? I don't shoot a lot of matches anymore. So most of what I'm training for is hunting or shooting predators or something. And most of those rifles are fairly light, which is why, we just kind of, I think it was last week or week before when you were here, was like, hey, I have an issue. I have a tendency to shoot rifles that are too light. Their balance are all fucked up. So let's fix it. So I'm always in a weird spot where it's like, I don't necessarily want to build my training rifle to be exactly the same as my comp rifle, because then I'm going to go to my hunting rifle, which, and again, I say a hunting rifle, but it's a varmint rifle. It's still heavy. It's still a precision rifle. It's just not a full chassis. And then I try to shoot that. So I'm in a weird spot to like how to build my trainers. But you're very specific, which I like.
Yeah, I think I'm just in a position right now where as long as whatever we're doing allows it, I'll probably just take the gun that I always take, right? If you see me go to a PRS style competition, whether it's a 2-day match or it's Pala, I'm standing there with either my 6BR or my 6XC, and they weigh 25 pounds.
Yeah.
If I'm going to go to a field match, right? I've had And this all started because people were like, well, you won't carry that in the field. Well, fucking, I should just carry it in the field then. So then I started carrying my rifle on these field matches where you're walking, 3 to 5 miles a day and going stage to stage to stage. So I'm using the same gun. Now, would I take that on a 65-mile sniper adventure challenge? Absolutely not. I will not do that. Right. I'm just asking for punishment.
Yeah.
Uh, but for almost everything else, like I remember, buddies of mine, when we come back from a deployment, we'd spend all our deployment money on guns, building badass fucking rifles, right? At least what we thought was badass at the time. And all of our rifles, funny enough, would somewhat mirror what an M40A5.
I was gonna say, how many M40A5s did you build? Because I built quite a few in my day.
So all of our rifles would somewhat mirror what that looked like, right? We'd have like Manor stocks or fucking Macmillan stocks. And then, like when you're a sniper, you are forced to learn everything about that rifle, right? And so they're like, hey, our barrel is a Schneider barrel. And you're like, where can I get a Schneider
Where
barrel?
can I get that? Where can I get that Schmidt? Where can I get that exact glass?
You think everything that rifle is just the bee's fucking knees, man. So we built rifles and we all had very similar looking builds because we all just loved the A5. So I remember guys building out rifles and their rifles would come in at around, 19, 18 pounds, which is about what the military guns weigh. And then they'd go out on hunts with them. Hey, I'm going out on this elk hunt and I'm carrying my 18-pound rifle for 12 miles. Like there was no excuse. It was just, this is my rifle and I'm going to go and take it, right? Which happens to be the same rifle that homeboy shot at a competition 2 weeks ago, so I can understand having different rifles, but I feel like right now, even if we were going to go on a hunt, and this might change, like I don't hunt coyotes. So if we go out on a coyote hunt and I take my rifle, I might have an experience that says, Tyler, this is not that rifle, right? It's just not it.
Yeah.
I don't know yet, right? But it doesn't mean I wouldn't try it. So, um,
Yeah, and honestly, there's nothing wrong with that. Like again, everything for me is mission specific, and I'm trying to run the most heavy barreled precision rifle as I can. There's just certain moments where it's like, hey, I need this specific caliber. Okay, cool. Build that same rifle in this caliber. Okay, cool. But now I need to be in this hunting chair, and there is a maximum weight. This is set up a certain style. Like, okay, this isn't going to work, right? Um, so again, it's all mission specific, right?
dude, when I got in
But
your hunting chair and I was like, oh, this is kind of cool. You're sitting pretty far up there.
yeah, 8.5 feet.
But then when you're trying to get down and I'm like holding on to different shit, you're like, don't touch that. Don't
Don't
grab,
fucking touch
don't
that.
put weight on that, Tyler. I'm like, fuck. It's easier to fall out the fucking chair to get down.
Yeah, I'm gonna do a video on that chair probably the next few weeks once things settle down here. But that chair is pretty cool. That chair is years and years in the making. I've had that chair built for about 10 years now, and I have no plans on changing it.
So specifically, before we talk about the 7 PRC, when you pull that chair out of the truck, right? Because again, we have not gone coyote hunting together yet, but you've given me the details. We're rolling down dirt road, you stop, you get out, throw the chair up, right? How quiet do you have to be when you're
So
getting
you need to be relatively quiet, but that's why. So when during season, I'll actually have just a sheet of carpet in the back of the truck, and it's just like deploying a tripod. I pull it out so the legs don't open up. I set it down quietly, open it up quietly, set it out, and climb up it. It's it's relatively simple and fast, which is why I designed it that way. But again, if you weigh 140 pounds and you can't lift that tripod up, it's not going to work for you. Like you've got
yeah.
to be able to lift that thing in and out of the truck all day.
I mean, it's not small, but it's all aluminum.
It's all aluminum, and like the armrests and stuff are chromoly. Like I welded those up to make sure they didn't have any weight. Um, it's very for a very specific purpose in a very specific region. Large parts of the state are the laws are a little different, so you can't actually you actually have to have your feet or your ass terra firma, like you can't be in a chair. But for the majority of the areas I hunt, I'm in my chair and it's legal. And it's
Interesting.
just for night hunting. It's not for day hunting.
Yeah. Okay. So
We'll do a video on it here fairly soon.
we have to, but I was just saying, I'm surprised you don't have like in your truck just a hydraulic lift chair that you just get in the back, hit the button.
So in Texas, we do that, right? So in Texas, you drive around, the guy is in the chair mounted while you're driving around,
Yeah,
back roads and
I've
stuff,
seen
running lights,
those.
but
Yeah.
you cannot shoot from a vehicle in California. So
Fuck.
it takes that off. There's actually guys that they get popped all the time. They're hatch hunters. They call it Arizona rigs because you can do that in Arizona. And they'll run campers with real tall shells. And
Yeah.
then they'll run the light like I do, but then they'll just shoot from the back of the truck, get back in, they stay nice and warm. It's totally legal.
So why are these laws put in place? Like what drove somebody to say you can't shoot from your truck?
I don't know, dude.
Like was it somebody's just driving and shooting out the window and they said ban that shit?
I
Or
have no
they
idea. I
specifically
mean, like if you have like a disability placard, you can shoot from your, there's all kinds of like exceptions. But for the most part, you can't. Um, and guys get popped for it all the time. Or they used to. I don't think, well, I like to say I don't think guys are doing that anymore, but I'm sure they do.
like do you have to be pretty dumb to get popped for something like that?
Uh,
I mean,
so
are game wardens just hiding in the bushes or
yeah, I mean, there's a handful of game wardens, there's not a ton that kind of hit the areas we hit, but guys get popped all the time. Like I wouldn't even think about doing something stupid because the chances are I'll do it once and there'll be a freaking fish cop right there ready to write me a ticket. Because again, all fish and game violations are misdemeanors. So do that with that what you will. I'm not trying to get a misdemeanor.
yeah.
Can't
Oh,
badge my way out of that.
there was this video, and I think it was this girl, and she was man, what was she doing? She was fishing or she was crabbing or something like that. And the game warden rolls up on her and says, "Hey, what are you up to?" She's like, "Oh, I'm just hanging out." And she basically like he says, "Oh, are you fishing?" She's like, "No, I'm rescuing." And like somehow convinces this cop to let all of her fish go. And then he's like, "Well, I'm gonna write you a ticket." And she's like, "For what?" He's like, "For the fish." She's like, "What fish?" And like he had
What
just let them
fish?
all go. Like,
These are my pet fish. Watch, they'll all come back.
all right, so we got a 7 PRC from Falcor. It's a 7 plus action.
Yeah.
Um,
Shout
it
out to Falcor for that thing. That thing's pretty
it
nasty.
is pretty nasty, right?
Yeah.
Now to our like surprise, well, I guess to my surprise, like the first time shooting it, I get down behind the rifle. Now this thing weighs with the loophole scope on it. I think we're at like 8 pounds. Like
Yeah, it's really light.
it's a light rifle, and it's carbon fiber barrel. And this just kind of goes back to like having gear that works for you, right? Because if you have an 8 pound rifle, Jeph, shooting a 7 PRC, you're expecting recoil, right?
Mhm.
And now the buttstock on this thing is full carbon fiber. There's no
There's
cushy
no
rubber
pad.
pad. There's nothing, right? You're just taking this shit and that's it. All right. And so like I'm like, okay, here it goes. I got it all shouldered. I'm looking and bam, take a shot. Now, yeah, I feel recoil, but that reticle settled right back on the target that I was shooting at. And I was like, holy shit, this thing didn't move. Now I have a decent position, got good buttstock placement, but ultimately, like the muzzle brake that they put on this bitch was worth it, right?
Yeah, and it's funny. It's not some big obnoxious thing. Like it's a nice looking, it's the same one I run on my Six Creed.
Yeah,
And it's just a really good working muzzle brake.
it is. So the first shot surprised me. And you know, you got to be careful because when you're dealing with these carbon fiber barrels and then these large calibers, you have to treat it like a hunting gun.
Mhm.
So we'd take a few shots and then we get like a flyer. It's like, okay, let's let it cool down. And we have to keep going through this process to get it zeroed. And then, okay, hey, it's time. Let's take it up. And what we chose to do was run basically what, 3, 5, 7,000, and then dump
Mhm.
off to a mile, right?
Yeah.
And so like we hit 300, and then I think we were dealing with a lot of wind that day. Our first shot, my first shot at 500, I didn't hold nearly enough wind. Like when I'm thinking of 7 PRC, I'm thinking of like a fucking laser beam, and that it should be a huge resistance to wind drift, right? So I
Yeah.
didn't
It,
hold
it didn't
nearly
do what I
enough.
thought it was going to do.
Yeah. So I think specifically it was the ammo that we had, right? The 175 grain ELD X's.
Yeah.
They're just not high performers, but so it didn't hold enough wind at 5, made a correction, got it. Okay, now we know what the wind is doing. We shot at 7, we shot at 1,000, and then boom, we pan over to the mile, and we're having to let the gun cool down a little bit. But what we shot, right? And now, granted, we had a complete angle change, right? In terms of direction of fire. We were getting a full value wind shooting 3, 5, 7, and 1,000. But then when you pan right and you punch over to that mile target, in your mind, you should be getting an angle change. You should be getting a
Yeah.
value,
You would think.
right? So you would think like, okay, I'm shooting this way, the wind's coming from that way. Maybe that's a 3/4 or a half value, right? And historically, you're like, yeah, that's kind of where I think it would be. So we took a few shots. We got nothing.
And I
Zero.
I could not call a single miss. It wasn't even close.
Wasn't close. So we let it cool off, take a few more shots, and we're just getting frustrated at this point. We're down what, like 10 rounds at this point.
Yeah.
We haven't even seen dust. So I'm like, do you think it's ripping apart in flight?
Yeah.
Like
It's just exploding midair.
that has happened before. I've seen that happen with bullets just rip apart in flight. So I'm like, is that happening? And we're holding all around this target. We're fucking plugging things into ballistic calculator. And then so we went back to the 1,300-yard target. Make a wind call, boom, shoot, and it's just off the left edge. I'm like, the data is solid. The elevation is perfect at 1,300. We can't be that far off for the mile, right? Because that was my first thought. Is like, maybe it's dropping low. Maybe it's dropping low into that sage and we're just not seeing it. And we initially started off holding like 3 mils for wind, 3 mils at a mile. And so at one point, out of pure frustration, just fuck it, I'm gonna hold 10 mils up, and we shoot. And I don't think you were paying attention at this point. I think you'd already given up. Like, we're not fucking.
Yeah. I checked out.
So I'm just watching, right? And boom, I see it impact. And I measure. I'm like, I got it. It's 5.5 mils off to the right. And you're like,
That's so
holy
much
fuck.
wind.
So we come back to the target, hold 5.5 mils left, keep the same elevation that was told to us by the calculator. And dude, it was like 3 or 4 hits back to back to
Yeah. It was
back.
3 in a row, back to back.
And it was like, okay, we just completely misjudged what the wind was doing out there. And because the target is kind of surrounded like 2 mils this way, 2 mils that way by sage everywhere, you weren't like, we were holding 3 mils. We weren't expecting to deal with 5.5 mils of wind.
Yeah, because I kept telling you every time you start to make a wind call, I'm like, it's only pushing 10. Like it's just at that 10 mile an hour. And what did we end up saying? It was like 12, almost 13 or something like that. Like it was.
When we shot all the targets, it was like 12 miles an hour. And then when we got to that mile, right? Let me see
Yeah,
here.
it grew.
That mile probably, um, Yeah, I mean, roughly an 18-mile-an-hour wind that we were dealing with, but that's at a full value, right?
Yeah.
That's at full value. If we are correct in the way that the wind is moving in relation to our shooting direction, if it was a half value, then we're dealing with 36-mile-an-hour wind, right? And there's just no way to know what the fuck's happening down there on
Yeah.
top of you're not shooting down here, right? You could be standing in the middle of the range. The wind that you feel running over the sagebrush is not the wind that's happening where that bullet is flying, right? You know, you go up 10, 15 feet, you could be dealing with a completely different wind speed. So, man, it was a challenging day. We finally
It
got,
was.
I mean, we flew the drone out there how many fucking times?
Yeah, quite a few times. And my drone was struggling in that wind.
Yeah, it was a good time. But I'm super impressed by the rifle. The rifle is definitely is badass. Have you
Yes,
even shot it yet?
I haven't. I'm gonna go out probably a couple weeks and go film a content. But yeah, I mean, I got decide if I'm gonna buy some ammo from a load up for it. I'm not sure. I got that cool little 419 press. I wanna spin up. So I may just load something up for it and go out there.
There you go. What bullet do you think you're gonna pull?
I don't know. Honestly, I'm gonna go online and just see what people are shooting. I don't know. I don't shoot any 7 mil, so I don't have any point of reference.
I'm gonna look it up here really quick. Let me see. 7 millimeter Hornady, and not AMAX. A-tip.
ELD, A
A-tip.
tips.
Yeah, the aluminum tip. Let's see here. They got 190 grain 7 mil A-tip.
Hmm.
You got to do that.
Okay.
That thing is gonna be a baller here. You want to see what the let's see. What do you think the BC is on this beast?
0.75. I
Let
don't know.
me see where we're at here. For a G7, okay, G7, it's a 0.422.
Okay.
That's pretty baller. I
That
mean,
is.
if
That's
you
a big bullet.
that's a big bullet, right? But in comparison, right, that G7 BC is nearly double your 175 grain 30 cal BC.
Yeah. That's crazy.
I mean, that's pretty, you have to do it. You have to do it. I'm not going to let you not do it
I'll spin some up.
on your fancy fucking area
Just wait,
419
just waiting
pro.
for my new mandrel set to show up.
Did you get the 7 mil penis?
Yeah, I got the fancy
You got the whole set with all the little.
little fancy tray, like 2 thou neck tension, and I'll run some 4 thou neck, some 4 neck tension on like the gas guns
There
for
you go.
5.
Okay, okay. How about a die? Did you pick up a die for 7 PRC yet?
No, I still got to get one.
Hmm. Hmm. Interesting. Dude, this is gonna be pretty cool. I'm wondering, just playing around on a ballistic calculator here. Do you remember the muzzle velocity for the 175 grain 7 PRC? Were we in the 29 2900 range?
No, I think we're like, well, close. I think we're like 28. No, we may have been 29. I feel like we're 28 change, but
So I have the 175 grain right here. So the muzzle velocity was 2800.
okay.
So 2805. So I'm going to copy this profile. Okay. And we're just going to guess. We're just going to guess. We'll call it 190 grain A tip. And then I'm going to select the bullet in here. What do you think we going from 175 to 190, right? Plus their hand loads, they're not factory. You think we could squeeze 2800 out of these?
Yeah, I'm sure it could.
All right, so here's the A tip. We're just going to keep that muzzle velocity. Everything else is the same. I got the velocity threshold to tell us where we hit transonic range at. Okay. Now for weather and atmospherics, we'll go with out at the range. So 5,000 density altitude. I'm going to turn all the wind off. So no wind up in here. And I just want to look at the chart, right? I want to look at the chart and I want to kind of get an idea. So for a mile shot, 16.4 mils. It's not bad, right?
No, it's not bad.
Also, you have not hit transonic range at a mile yet.
I was gonna say, is that right in the transonic range?
No, it's not even showing up on here. Hold on. Transonic range happens at 1,784 yards. So just 20
Holy
yards
shit,
past
20
the,
yards past.
dude. You sling those 190 grain A-tips at a mile, right? And if they're cooking at 2,800 feet per second, this thing is a laser beam. Let's see what it is for wind. I just want to know what mile per hour it is. So let's see here. Weather. What are you thinking it is? You think it's an 8-mile-an-hour gun?
I mean, it's big bullet. 7.
No. I'm still figuring it out right now, but it is a 9-mile-an-hour gun.
Jesus Christ.
So to put that in perspective, right? Put that in perspective, the 175 grain hunting rounds, those bad Larrys, that round goes transonic at 1460.
Yeah, we didn't even get it there.
1460. I want to say it's a 3 mil difference at a mile between the 175s and the 190s.
Jesus.
And then the wind, right? Let me see here. The wind, it's a 7-mile-an-hour wind rifle. So the 175 grain bullets, 2,800 feet per second, ELDXs are 7-mile-an-hour gun. So it's not horrible, right? It's not bad.
No, it's not bad.
But it's not 9. It's not 9 like those A-tips.
I don't think I've ever shot a 9-mile-an-hour gun.
That's a laser, bro. Whew. So, dude, you got to load those up. You got to film that shit. I want to see how it goes and save some for me. I want to shoot it when I come back.
I will.
All right, man. You got any save rounds for your training rifle episode?
Do I have any?
Yeah. You got
Yeah.
anything you want to add to the show?
No, I was gonna go on a tangent about 223s for a minute versus the 308, but as we started kind of talking about it, I think I'm kind of changing my mind. I mean, again, like
You have a baller ass 223 gun.
I do. And actually, here's what's funny is when we got back, I took the 308 out of that stock, stuck my 223 back in it, and now it's actually ready to go. It's back to the range.
Dude, that's an awesome little rifle.
So I've got 2 rifles loaded up to go back next week. It's the 308, it's the Surgeon,
Yep.
and I've got the 223, and that's what I'm going to take to the range next week just to train with. Because I can't have it was too close. I can't have you beat me next time we run a match.
Wait, what was too close?
The last one. I obviously got my ass handed to me weeks prior.
Oh, okay. I wasn't sure which one you were talking about. Yeah. We're gonna have to have a redo.
We will.
When did we do that competition? We did that 3, 5, and 7. We did that in September.
Yeah. Yeah.
So
and I'll have that video out. It'll be in with the 7 PRC video, so I'll have that out in a few weeks as soon as my editor gets settled in. But
so October, November, December, January, 4 months. You have 4 months, my friend.
All right. And I will shoot the 308 in 4 months.
I won't shoot anything. How about that? I will not practice from now till then.
Well, you know, I'm not going to practice between now and
then. All right, man. Hey, this is a good conversation. Appreciate you taking the time out of your day, buddy.
Thank
So
you.
till next week, homie, I will catch you later.
Peace.
See ya.